Welcome. I'm Beth. I am here today answering your wedding speech questions. Whether you're the best man, the maid of honor, the father of the bride, mom, someone filling in for one of those positions, we're here to answer all of your questions. So put your questions in the chat. And if you have a draft of your speech, feel free to add that. You can submit that for a mini speech review by using the link in the description or pinned to the top of the chat. So let's see. So if you're here, let me know you're here. Let me know what type of speech you're writing and where you are in the world. And just a little housekeeping. Let's get to the questions. So I've asked people to submit questions in advance. We've got a bunch of those, but if you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to them in between the questions that were already submitted. So without further ado, should we put that there? Use the link to, well, that'll make us all dizzy. And let's get to the first question. First question is, my speech is only like 3 minutes. Is that long enough? So the wedding speech is only about 3 minutes long. Yes, that's enough. That's plenty. If in your speech, you're saying everything you want to say. I mean, when I talk to clients, I always recommend that speeches, well, when you sit down to write your speech, I suggest aiming for 5 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean that on the day it has to be dead on exactly 5 minutes. It's a good number to aim for, because if you're a little short and it's 3 minutes, but you say everything you want to say, that's fine. And if it goes a little long and if you're around 7 minutes, that's fine too. So if the 3 minutes includes everything that should be in the speech, and I have 6 essential elements. There are 6 things that I think should be in every wedding speech, or I recommend should be in every wedding speech in one form or another. These things are not written in stone, but the 6 things that I really think are essential to a wedding speech. So first is your intro. Let people know who you are and why you're speaking. And then so that part isn't super kind of boring, let people know how you're feeling about speaking that day, or give us some context. So don't just say you're the bride's sister, say you're the older sister. Is it a big age difference? If you're the father of the bride and you know you're going to cry throughout this whole thing, or it's just a matter of time, tell us that. So give people a little preview, either kind of the content or your personality or the dynamic. Give them a little something aside from just, I'm Beth, I'm the maid of honor, and here I go into my speech. Give people a little preview of what's to come. I mean, if I were giving a maid of honor speech and I'm go up there in a big floofy maid of honor dress, that is something I would have to acknowledge before I continued on with my speech. So there's your intro, step 1, moving on into thanks and acknowledgments. Thanks, that depends kind of on who you are in the wedding. So if you're the father of the bride, you're going to thank your guests for coming. If you're the maid of honor or the best man, you're going to thank your hosts. So if you're the bride or the groom, you're going to thank your guests for coming. Acknowledgments, that's where you can talk about absent friends and family. And it's a good thing to do early on in that spot, because if you do it there, kind of in the business section of the speech, then that means you don't have to mention it later when you're trying to build momentum and build the heart and the humor and all that stuff that you're going to run towards the toast. So if you do it early, and it's a potentially sad subject, you don't risk kind of slowing the momentum down later on. So your intro, your thanks and acknowledgments, then you talk about your half of the couple and why they're great. You talk about the other half of the couple and why they're great. And then you talk about the couple as a unit and why they're great together and what you see for them or wish for them in the future. And then you end the whole thing with a great big raise your glass toast. Literally, raise your glass. Would you all please raise your glass and join me in a toast to the happy couple? I know I speak for everyone when. So those are the 6 things that should be in the speech. And if you can cover all of those in 3 minutes, and you can, then 3 minutes, perfectly fine. Now let's go on. So that was the first question. If you're just joining us and you've got a question about wedding speeches, go ahead and put it in the chat. We answered that one. Next question is, I'm my brother's best man, and this is my first ever wedding as a guest. Oh, that's a tall order. So the first wedding this guy's going to, he's the best man, and he has to make a speech. Okay, that's a lot to not know. I'm my brother's best man, and this is my first ever wedding as a guest, and I'm totally clueless about what to do. I know I should write a speech. About what, though? He is my older brother. Well, as we just said, those are the 6 parts of a speech. That's a great outline for you to get started with. And by the way, you can get that outline if you go into the description. There's a free download for a wedding speech writing guide. It has all 6 sections of that outline. So, well, first of all, brother's best man, I would say take a deep breath. Your brother asked you, he's your big brother, he asked you to give this speech because he knows you can do it. I mean, he's literally known you his entire life. I'm sure he has friends so he had choices when it came to who he wanted to be his best man, and you're the one he chose. So do what you're doing now, which is reaching out, looking for help, looking for any kind of guidance. The 6 parts of the speech that I talked about, that's a great framework to hang your speech on. And when you give your speech, just try to be yourself. So when you're out there and you're looking for, and you're watching examples of speeches on YouTube, when you're looking for advice on how to write a best man speech, borrow structures, but try not to borrow jokes, because you look online and you get just those same cliche jokes over and over again. Oh, now put your hand over her hand, and now, oh, that's the last time you'll have the upper hand. Try to stay away from that kind of stuff. Try to make the humor in your speech come from real experiences. Truth is funny. This guy is your older brother. I'm sure the 2 of you, I'm sure you've got tons of stories about him being a good big brother, a bad big brother, the 2 of you joining forces to torture your parents. I'm sure you've seen him through you've seen him pass through just different stages of his life, from being the annoying big brother to probably going off to school. And now he's dating someone and he's getting married. He's going to be a father. So talk about how the things that you've seen, having a front row seat to all of those different stages in his life, and how do you think he's going to be as a husband and a father. So you don't have to know much. You just have to know your brother and hang all of that in a framework, in an easy outline like the one I'm talking about. Those 6 essential parts that will give you the structure. Speak from the heart, and don't get hammered before you give the speech. That seems to be something that, because you will be very nervous at your first wedding. The booze flows freely, often too freely. You will want to have a couple of drinks. So try to just limit it to 1 drink before you go up there, because public speaking is well, it requires coordination, the same as anything else. Your brain and your mouth kind of have to be coordinated. And booze, just like when you drive, it doesn't help your coordination. So don't get up there and be a drunk best man. Really, if you just do that, you're going to be miles ahead of a lot of people giving best man speeches. So good luck with that. Let's see. Let's find our next speech, our next question. Next question. Okay, well, along the same line. I hate speaking in public, and the idea of doing it makes me nauseous. All right, well, it is speaking in public, but the thing about a wedding speech is, because most people are scarred from the experience of speaking, giving a school report or something like that, where they've just had a horrible experience doing it. That's not what this event is like. Giving a wedding speech is going to be the nicest crowd you're ever going to be in front of, because the people, the other guests, I was going to say audience, but it's not really even audience, right? They're the other guests. So I don't know who you are in this wedding, it doesn't say, but you're probably the father of the bride. So in which case the guest, like, you're buying a dinner at the very least. So they're rooting for you. If you're the maid of honor or the best man, people know that you are someone that is very, very special to the couple, and they're there because they love the couple also. So know that this is a great audience. This is an audience who wants you to succeed, because you're kind of them. You're representing the friends and family. You are the representative of all of those guests going up there and talking about your experience with the bride or the groom or both of them. And the experiences that you're going to be talking about are unique to you, but they're kind of universal in the sense that you're going to talk about, well, yeah, but Michelle, she's the kind of person that will do absolutely anything for you. And she showed up when my parents were in the hospital with, this tons and tons of food and a bunch of candy because she knew I couldn't get away and I just needed to eat a bunch of junk food. And all of the guests who are sitting there are going to say, yeah, Alan, I remember that. They're going to be thinking about the things that Michelle did for them. So public speaking, if you don't enjoy it, is tough, but this is the most wonderful audience. They want you to succeed. Some practical things that you can do. One is as simple as just practice your speech, because feeling prepared is going to give you more confidence. Feeling prepared is going to take a little bit of that pressure off. So when I say practice, I mean write your speech, and once your speech is written, sit. You can be alone in a room, just practice it to the wall, the dog, the cat, and read your speech out loud. Just literally read it out loud. Because the more you read it out loud, the more you're going to get your brain and your mouth coordinated. You're going to get your mouth used to saying the words. You're going to get that muscle memory going. And that muscle memory, it's the same as doing basketball drills. It's the same as anything. It's the same as if there's a dance step that you want to learn, but the first few times you do it, you go, this is awkward. This is super awkward. I mean, I do that every time I do a dance step, but it's always awkward. But theoretically, the more times you do it, you internalize it, and you make it, and you give yourself that muscle memory. So rehearse your speech. Before you go on, well, I already talked about, if I was telling the best man earlier, don't drink. So again, if you're really nervous, you're going to be tempted to drink, save it for the victory lap, save it for when you're finished. I mean, after that, get shit-faced. But try not to drink beforehand. Also, beforehand, see if you can go somewhere private, the men's room, the ladies' room, and just close your eyes, take some deep breaths, because those deep breaths, they're going to relax you. The time will relax you, and the deep breaths will get a little more oxygen in, and they'll calm you down, and they'll help to kind of take away that nervous, shaky voice. So those are some practical things. But most of all, if you really hate speaking in public, tell people. Open your speech with it. Hi, I'm Beth. I got to be honest. Public speaking is not my favorite thing to do. I wouldn't do it for anybody else. And by the way, if you say that, even if you're shaking like a leaf, if you say that, I mean, how can you not be rooting for you? You know, if someone tells you that they're nervous and they, as an audience member, you know they're nervous, but you acknowledge it, but they acknowledge it. I mean, that is so, it's endearing and it's honest and you're making yourself vulnerable. So tell people that you're nervous. If you want, you can make a joke of it. Just go, if I pass out while I'm up here, just drag me back to my seat. And when I come to, tell me I was great. You know, and you don't have to deliver it like a comedian. Even if you deliver it shaking and terrified, people will understand. So be prepared, have a joke, take some deep breaths, don't drink, and you're going to give a great speech. You were chosen because someone loves you and trusts you. I feel like the coach, you know, who's getting the team ready. So let's see. It looks like we've got. Okay, so, well, we've got a question. How do you handle the I want to vomit because I hate public speaking nerves? Well, there you go. Okay. That is, we've just covered it. I mean, boy, there's a lot of potential vomiting with wedding speeches, apparently. If you're just joining us today, we are answering your wedding questions. Like there's someone here with me, me and the voices in my head. We're answering your wedding questions. My name's Beth Sherman. I am a professional TV comedy writer with a weird double life, writing wedding speeches. I've been doing it for about 5 years now, and I've written over 300 wedding speeches. Ghostwritten them, punched them up, made them funnier. And I've written them for every member of the wedding. I have fallen in love with this. I still do the TV stuff, but I have fallen in love with this hard because it's such a pleasure to be part of these speeches. And there's so much potential with wedding speeches, not just to give a good speech, but to give a speech that really kind of brings people together and tells people how you feel about them. How many opportunities do you have to tell the people in your life how you feel about them in a public way? You don't. I mean, the next time you're going to be saying these things, God forbid, is going to be their eulogy. So let's not save it for then. Let's say it now. Let's see here. Also, if you're just joining us, let me know in the chat what sort of speech you are writing or preparing for and where you are in the world. I can see that there are people watching, but they're all very quiet. That's okay. We'll keep going with our with the questions that were already submitted. Oh, okay. Here's a heavy one. How to honor dead parents in maid of honor speech without being depressing. Well, I wouldn't refer to them as dead parents in the speech. I might find a euphemism, past. It's hard to tell from this if this is maid of honor, if this is a maid of honor giving a speech for her sister or for a friend. I would guess maybe maid of honor for a sister. And earlier, so if you're just joining us, one of the questions I answered earlier was kind of what goes in a wedding speech, and the 6 parts of a wedding speech that I like to use as just a basic outline. And in that, it's introduction, thanks, and acknowledgments. Then you talk about your half of the couple and why they're great, the other half of the couple and why they're great together, and then a great big toast. So in that second section where it's the thanks and acknowledgments, that is a great place to acknowledge absent friends and family. Parents, for sure, would fall into that category. And the reason I do suggest doing that kind of up top in that business section of the speech is because you're not too deep into the stories and the funny yet. So there's less chance of you slowing down any of the momentum. So a way to do that is, so sort of you get to the end of the, you thank everyone for coming and all of that. And when you're thanking people for coming, you can acknowledge, thank you all for coming, people who've come from here, there, and everywhere. And if people have come from far away, you can, literally explicitly say how far people have come to be there. And in that section, that's a natural progression into, and of course, I have to mention who's not here, the huge presence that's missing, and that's our parents. They would have loved to have been here today, but I know there's not a doubt in my mind that they're watching what's going on, and they are so proud that Julie has found Steve and someone to make her complete. I know they're looking down and thinking, and this is where, because my background is comedy, and also I think that comedy and it's such a helpful tool in any kind of speech, but particularly in emotional speech, because it's a balance. So you kind of you build the emotional tension, and in this case, it's just it's sadness. You're talking about loss. But and that sort of, you fill up that balloon, so to speak, that balloon of emotion, but then you gotta kind of pop it, or let a little air out of that, break that tension just a little bit. So a way to do it is, I know they're looking down and with pride, and maybe it's just, and they're also saying, so think about what they would actually be doing if they were there. So I know they're looking down with pride, and mom is saying, mom's saying how beautiful you look today. Although she did say your hair's too short, or she says, you're looking too thin. You should have something to eat. Maybe that's more of a grandmother thing, but something that she would actually be saying. Or dad is, and I know, mom and dad are there looking down, when they're not fighting with each other about, this or that or something small. Dad's looking down going, can you believe how much this is costing me? Or what do you mean you didn't get the big shrimp tower? What do you mean, what are you trying to starve these people? So whatever it is, these are just horrific examples off the top of my head, but whatever it is, so you build that tension and then say something, they're looking down with pride, and they would say this, that, and then something that they might actually say, but that's funny and honest and human, and it'll break the tension. And also, if it's honest, and people are going to recognize that, the people that knew your parents are going to be laughing because, one, it diffuses the situation, diffuses the emotion, but also they knew your parents. They knew your dad would have been complaining about how much stuff cost, or your mom would have been, or your mom would have been running around trying to, make sure everybody was happy, and, or she would have been crying so much it would have flooded the place out, whatever it is. But just try to give it a little bit of balance. And like I said, don't use the phrase, I'd like to honor our dead parents. Dead parents is kind of I'm just kidding. I know you're probably not going to use that phrase. This is weird sitting here talking to myself. But I'm not talking to myself, I'm talking to you. It's just the only person I hear is me. If you are just joining us, I'd like to cough in your ear. If you're just joining us and you have questions about a wedding speech, drop them in the chat. If you have a speech that's written, if you have a draft of your speech, even if it's rough, I am totally open to doing a live speech audit. It's something that I offer as a paid service on my website. You can book me to do a 20-minute video audit of your speech where I give you a ton of feedback. I'm doing them free today. So maybe not 20 minutes because that's a lot, but I'm doing them free today. So if you have a draft of your speech and you would like feedback, constructive feedback on how to make the structure better, how to make it funnier, you can submit your speech. There is a link in the description to submit your speech, and there is also a pin to the top of the comments. There is a link to that submission form. Let's get the dead parents off the screen. But yeah, if anyone's got a draft of their speech, send it in. If you are watching this on replay, obviously we can't answer the questions. You can't submit a question if you're watching it on replay, but I will put, if you look in the description, I will have put the timestamp for each of these questions in the description, so you can just see where each question is, and you can skip to the question that pertains to you the most, or you can just put me on in the background and listen, because even if you don't have a particular question, I mean, even if you don't think it applies to you, a lot of the advice is kind of universal, and it kind of applies to most types of speeches. Okay, so moving on. Is it bad if I don't memorize my speech? No, it's not bad if you don't memorize your speech. It's bad if you don't write your speech. It's bad if you don't practice your speech, but it's not bad if you don't memorize your speech. I actually suggest to clients that they don't memorize their speech, because if you don't memorize things in your daily life, like if you don't give speeches all the time, if you don't memorize stuff, it's difficult to do, and it kind of puts the emphasis on the wrong part of the exercise, because really the exercise is just delivering a speech that has great content and delivering it in an honest and engaging way. So there's no expectation of memorization from the other guests or the audience. This isn't a Broadway show. So if you go up there and you've got a note card with you, or a few note cards, or a few pages with you, all that's going to do is look like you prepared. And believe me, people are going to be much happier to know that you are prepared. They're not going to look at your pages and go, oh my God, this is going to take forever. They're going to look at it and say, oh wow, thank goodness, this speech might be good. It's not going to be one of those wedding speeches. So you don't have to memorize it, but what I do suggest is practicing it. And you don't need anyone else there around you to practice it. All you need is to just read your speech out loud. You can read it to the wall, the dog, the cat. You can read it out loud to other people, but it's really, the exercise is just getting that muscle memory and getting your mouth and your brain and your eyes all coordinated. So read it out loud 10, 20, 30 times, as many times as you can in the weeks up to the wedding, because it's going to make your delivery smoother, because you'll be able to read what's on your page and then look up, because you want to make eye contact with the people that you're talking about. You want to be able to look up and say, Dave, the first time I met you, I thought, and you want to be able to do that. You don't want to have to, you don't want to have your eyes glued on the page, and you don't want to sound like you're reading it cold, like a stranger just handed you something and you have to read it out loud. The worst thing is looking like you're a middle school student who's just and then I met Debbie, and Debbie is great. And then I thought, oh, that is the perfect girl for him. You don't want that where all people just see is your forehead. Just practice it enough so that you're very, very familiar with it. And you know how your punchlines are worded, because that's something else. If you're giving a business speech and you have it memorized, but you kind of paraphrase it on the day, you kind of, you give the spirit of the speech, but you're not word for word perfect, that's fine because it's a business speech. But in comedy, you've chosen your words, building this joke, you've chosen your words carefully. And the order of the words makes the joke what it is. It makes it a joke. The last part of this thing that you're saying is called the punchline. And the worst thing you can do is sort of memorize your speech and be so preoccupied with memorizing your speech. And then on the day you're going along, the part that you kind of have the brain fart at is the punchline. So don't try to memorize your speech if it's not something you do all the time. If you want to, hey, go for it, but don't feel pressure to memorize your speech. You don't lose any points by not memorizing your speech. You get full credit, everything. Okay. Let's see. If you're just joining us and you have a question about the wedding speech you're writing or the situation or how to deliver it, drop your question in the chat. I'm happy to answer it. If you have a draft of your speech and you would like me to review it, there's a link to do that pinned to the top of the chat and also in the description. And in the description, also lots more resources on how to write a great wedding speech and the services I provide. If you are watching this on replay, you obviously can't ask a question, but what you can do is jump to the description, and in the description I'll have the timestamp for all the different questions, so you will know if there's a particular question, a particular answer you're looking for, you'll be able to go through and jump to the subject that is most important to you. Oh, I like this question. Do I need to include jokes, etc.? I've never seen myself as super funny. Should I more so just focus on the heartwarming aspects? Father of the bride. Okay. This is gin, actually. I'll tell you another thing about wedding speeches. Do you need to include jokes? So this is a father of the bride who's never seen himself as super funny, and he's wondering if he needs to include jokes, etc. I think of humor in a speech, any kind of speech, especially father of the bride speech, a wedding speech, it's seasoning, right? So if you think of it kind of as salt, it depends on the food. So a little bit can go a long way. If it's chocolate or caramel or something, all you need is a little tiny dusting, and it's just going to wake the whole thing up. So if you are someone who doesn't see yourself as super funny, which probably means other people don't either, the bar's kind of low, not in a bad way, just people aren't expecting you to go up there and be Chris Rock. They're expecting, honestly, what they're expecting is probably a fairly boring speech. So what you can do is, if you just give them a little bit of humor, it's going to go a long, long way, because they are anticipating something that's going to be kind of dry. You're going to get kind of double credit anytime you're funny. So now you're asking if you need to include jokes. I'm not a fan of jokes per se, but what makes a speech funny, especially a personal speech like this, there's two main things, and they're very easy to include. Self-awareness and specificity. So self-awareness, if you go up there and say, I'm the father of the bride and I'm a forensic accountant, so don't expect to fall off your chair laughing. I mean, just that, being self-aware is going to go a long way. Another way you can get humor into the speech without including jokey jokes and dad jokes is specificity. So self-awareness and specificity. And that's me spitting all over. If only they were in S words. Self-awareness and specificity. So specificity is something that, so say you are describing, say your daughter was always in dance classes as a kid, and it was a really big part of her life. Instead of just saying that, give us details. You went to, there was a period of time when you were going to recitals, it felt like every second day. And, she was always try to remember some of the outfits that she had to wear. Was she dressed up, was it a sequin thing as a flower, or she was dressed up like a rockette? I mean, really going into detail. And if you can think of 3, 5, 7 specific outfits that she was wearing or examples, then that's the kind of thing, because they're going to be silly as hell. I mean, they're kid outfits. I mean, my dad's got a picture of me that you will never see. My dad's got a picture of me. I mean, it's like a Carmen Miranda kind of, I don't know, they signed me up for dance classes. So but if he had described that outfit and some of the other ones, or if he had described how painful it was not to watch me, but to watch the 17 other kids that were up there. I mean, it was painful to watch me, but I was his daughter, so he enjoyed it. But talk about those sort of specific details. And sometimes the details are where the dance classes were, where the recitals were they church basements? Were they, was he driving all over the place all the time? So, or were you driving all over the place all the time? So it's those kinds of details. I mean, if she was stubborn as a kid, don't just tell us that she's stubborn. Give us specific examples. The more specific you are, every time we told her it was time to go to bed, she would find a way to sort of bilk a few more minutes out of it by doing X and Y and Z, because those specific examples are great. I had a father of the groom who was writing a speech, and this guy was not funny. It's not a bad thing, but he was not funny. But the groom, who was apparently very stubborn, and there was basically a whole year where he wore the same outfit. And he had that in the speech. I went, well, wait, what was the outfit? And he said it was a little polo shirt and a pair of red shorts. And I said, all year? He said, oh yeah, no, all year. I said, so you mean like February? He said, yeah, wearing the shorts, all that in February. And we put that together in a way that becomes a moment for humor. So it serves the purpose of a joke. It gets the laugh, because you tell people he wore the same outfit, and then you describe the outfit, you're specific about it, and that's your joke. So that's going to make lost my train of thought. So do you need to include jokes? No, you don't need to. Give yourself a little dusting. Great ways to give that little dusting of humor: specificity and self-awareness. All right. I see 2 comments have come in. Well, hi, Bonnie. Thank you for joining us. I'm not able to get my questions to go through. I'm seeing them. I am seeing your questions, Bonnie. So whatever you did to get those 2 through, then please send the question. Oh, wait, there's more in. Maybe this is it. This is it. Da, 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 da. Bonnie, what kind of speech you writing? Let me know. Just drop it in the comments. You have found a way to get them through whatever you did that made them go through. You have cracked the code, and I will answer your question as soon as it comes in. Until then, let's move on to the next question. If you are just joining us, go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. Also, let us know what kind of speech you're writing and where you are in the world. Bonnie, I see your question. Let me answer the one that's on the screen, and then I will absolutely answer that question next. So this question is, I'm maid of honor to my best friend of 11 years. I don't like her fiance at all. And if my friend was not getting married to him, I would not want to know him. How do I give a positive speech? So, Bonnie, I see your question, and you are next. I promise to answer that question. So, maid of honor to your best friend basically hates the fiance, hates the groom. That's what I'm getting from this question. How do you give a positive speech? Well, so like I said, in the sort of structure, the 6-part structure of a wedding speech, you've got one of the sections, and you can grab that. There's a free download in the description, but one of those sections is talking about the other half of the couple and why they're great. And I do always put the asterisk with it, why they're great, even if they're not great. So 2 things. I would say, so you don't have to say a lot. You have to say something. You don't have to say a lot. Don't be passive aggressive. And even if you're not intentionally being passive aggressive, just make sure that whatever you write can't be taken as passive aggressive. You're doing it for the sake of your friend. The whole speech you're doing really for the sake of your friend. And if this guy is a jerk, she's going to have a lot of not great days ahead of her. So, make this one nice. A way to really say it is you can just be honest and talk about what you do have in common, which is just likely your best friend. So, Dave, I know we don't have a lot in common, but the one thing we agree on is that Sharon is just the most amazing person in the world. So, and even if that's all you say about him, just by saying, Dave, there's a lot we don't agree on. People will know what you mean because they likely feel the same way about him. There's likely a lot of people there who feel the same way about him that you do. And your friend will appreciate you trying to find some middle ground, some common ground. And if he's not a total jerk, he'll appreciate that as well. And it also you can kind of deliver that almost as a joke, because if he's, maybe you're just totally opposite ends of the political spectrum, or, but just saying, there's a lot we look him in the eye, say it with a smile on your face so that he knows it's a joke, so that it keeps it lighthearted. Because if you say there's a lot we don't agree on, that kind of sounds provocative. But if you say there's a lot we don't agree on, and you say it with a smile on your face, kind of a glint in your eye, it's going to come across as much more lighthearted. And then a lot we don't agree on, but the one thing we can agree on, and maybe that'll get a laugh from everyone and him, because you're acknowledging, yeah, there's a lot we don't agree on. And then that's probably plenty. You don't have to spend a lot of time on them, but just reach out that olive branch, and it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it, because your friend's, if she's marrying someone and he's rubbed you the wrong way, your instincts are probably good, but that just means she's probably going to need a good friend out there. So keep do her that kindness and reach out. It makes you look good also, but it makes her look good for choosing you, and it saves it from being a potentially awkward situation. It's taking the high road, but doing it with a smile, getting a little laugh from it. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today. Yep, your question has gone through. So here, I'm going to put this up here. Here you go. Well, first of all, Bonnie, I'm so sorry for your loss. How do I acknowledge my husband who recently passed away from COVID without making everybody sad at my Mother of the Bride speech? Well, that's definitely a tall order. That is, boy, life's quite the emotional roller coaster, isn't it? You've got both ends of the spectrum of there, don't you? So, as I was saying, so a place to acknowledge that, I would say, as early in the speech, I would mention it as early in the speech as you can. I think in this case, I would make it maybe one of the first things that you say. And usually I sort of say, introduce yourself, and then do your thank yous and your and the acknowledgements. So do it as close to the top of your speech as you can. But first I would do a little bit of happiness. So when you go up there, Bonnie, I am the incredibly proud mother of the bride. So-and-so, you just look absolutely gorgeous today. To me, you're always a 10, but today you're hitting at least 15. Scott, you are just, you couldn't be more handsome. So something nice. What a beautiful ceremony. And thank you all for sharing. And that's really maybe where you could make your transition. Thank you all for sharing this wonderful but very bittersweet day. Because as happy as we are to celebrate this wonderful, wonderful occasion, your husband, Dave, as so many of you know, Dave, we lost Dave not long ago. But I know that he is looking down with pride, and so tell us, give us a description of what he would be doing or saying if he were there. He's looking down with pride. He would look at you and say, well, what would he say? Channel his words in the sense of, what nickname did he call her? What's something that he, what would he say to the groom? So just kind of put it in his words. He would say, and then make it sound kind of like a direct quote from him. It's okay to add a little bit of humor to it as well. And maybe look, if they got married on a Sunday and he's a huge football fan, you go, he would be, if he were here today, well, he'd be totally distracted because the Chargers are playing. It's okay to kind of bring up another part of his personality, but try to have him there, bring up his presence, but try to bring it up in a not in a lighthearted way, but bring it up, bring him there, make us see him for a minute, and make us see the happy him, because if he were there, it would be a very happy occasion for him. So I hope that helps. Let me know in the comments if you feel like that's going to get you on your way. But again, yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is, those are two big life events way too close together. And thank you for sending in that question. Let me just refresh some of these submissions. Whoop. Next question. What's a good way to start a wedding speech that's not for anyone who doesn't know me? See, that's a line, it gets a bad rap because I think that people only say that. So if it's not bad on its own, but it's bad if you don't add anything with it. It's kind of like I was gonna say a plain hamburger, but I'm sure there are people going, no, the hamburger's fine plain. But what you want to do is, if you say something like that, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Beth, the sister of the bride, and then follow that with something that is that tells us a little something about you and how you feel about being up there, or something that gives us a preview of the dynamic between you and the person you're up there to speak about. So if you're the father of the bride, you could say something like, well, if there's anyone here who doesn't know me, you're probably in the wrong place. Or if you're the father of the bride, also, I'm the father of the bride. Susan, I'll try not to embarrass you too much up here. I mean, I won't try hard, but I will try not to embarrass you up here. I mean, give us something that previews the dynamic between the two of you. That means that you two can kind of tease each other, just a little something extra. If you're the earlier in the stream, one of the first questions was from a guy who, he's the best man to his brother, his older brother, but this poor best man has never even been to a wedding before. So this is his very first wedding. Well, that's something that I would suggest opening with. I'm Scott. I'm the best man. I got to be honest. This is not just my first. This is my first best man speech, and this is my first ever wedding. It's my first ever best man speech, and it's my first ever wedding ever. I've never been to a wedding before. I'm learning as I go. So please be gentle. Just something, but that's something that's going to really humanize you to the audience. It's something that's endearing and it's honest and it makes you vulnerable. So it's not so much that people are saying for anyone who doesn't know me, that's kind of the only thing they're saying. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Beth, the maid of honor. Sharon was great. I met her in college. It's when you don't really give us any depth with that. So begin your speech by giving us a little, really introduce it. I sort of call it the introduction when I go through the outline, but really literally introduce not just you by name. Don't just give us your name, but give us a little something. Tell us kind of who you are, literally and figuratively. Or yes, literally and figuratively, yes. Oh, it's my pleasure, Bonnie. And there's lots more resources in the description if you need some more help, and also ways to reach me. But congrats on the wedding. Sounds like your family could use a happy occasion. Okay, next question is, I don't think I can tell my best funny stories for my best man speech. Well, your instinct may be right, but there's usually a workaround. I assume this means that your best man speeches are inappropriate for mixed company. By mixed, not just by gender, but, grandma's there. This is a good place to kind of go through. I call when people ask me what should I not say in a wedding speech, I like to call them the 5 Ps. So the 5 Ps, things not to mention in your wedding speech: profanity, poop, projectile vomiting, previous partners, and politics. So I am assuming that your funniest stories probably involve the first 4. So first of all, keep digging for funny stories. Second of all, it's hard to know without knowing what those stories are. If there are a lot of frat stories and things like that, maybe put those to the side for the moment, but then think about other examples of ways your friend has been a good friend, or think about, what's great in a wedding speech? Firsts. So maybe think about, instead of the stories, where you're funneling beer into an orifice, think about first. So what was the first time you met your friend? What do you remember about it? What were your first impressions when you first met him? Did you think he was too cool for school? Did you think he was a total dork? Did you think he was, and why? What was he wearing, or what did he say to you? And did those first impressions prove to be correct? So think about stories like that. Think about examples, because you're probably going to say, he's a great guy and he'd do anything for anyone. Well, give us specific examples. So whenever you tell us something about this person, give us an example that illustrates the quality. So if he would do anything for anyone, I'm sure you've got a couple of examples of him going out of his way for people in a way that probably, to his detriment. So, does he own a pickup truck and he has probably moved 27 people in the last 12 months because he would, he's a sucker and he's got a pickup truck and everyone knows it? Did he help you carry your couch up 5 floors? How has he come through for you? If you've got a funny story that's inappropriate, then if you've got the pile of stories that you think are probably inappropriate, try to maybe pick the one that you think is funniest and the one that you think is kind of salvageable, and see if there's a way that you can kind of use euphemisms. So if it involves one of those 5 P's, profanity, poop, projectile, vomiting, past partners, or politics, see if there's a way that you can sort of talk around it. So instead, you can just say, upset stomach. People will know what you mean. I promise you, people will know what you mean. So sometimes if you just understate it, if you say, he drank, we had a very good time at the party the night before, then he spent the night in the bathroom being unwell. If you choose your words carefully and sort of understate it, but understate it for the sake of comedy, people will get it. And also then you don't have to say, he barfed all over the bathroom. Because you want to avoid talking about stuff like that, especially because people are eating. That's the other thing. The reason, something I always have to remind best men of, or often have to remind them of, wedding speeches are given while people are eating, or they have just eaten, or they're going to eat. So stories that might be funny if you are just out for drinks with people are less funny when they're eating airline chicken breast that has some sort of unidentifiable brown sauce on it, and you're telling them about someone being violently ill. Well, time has gone by. Okay, so we have one more. Bonnie, I'll do that question, and then we'll start to wrap things up. How many minutes is appropriate? I always suggest that people aim for about 5 minutes. You can say pretty much everything you need to say in 5 minutes. If it's a little bit, if it's 3, if it's 7, you're still in a great place. What you want to avoid is just kind of going on and on and on. But aiming for about 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is, it's about 750 words, because people speak about 150 words a minute. And it's about 1.5 pages double spaced. So look, if you end up with 1 page, you end up with 3 pages, you're still in the right ballpark. But you don't need to put together something that's 27 pages long. But that should get you there. And as I've done, I like to break speeches down into 6 parts. First part's the introduction, then your thank yous and acknowledgments, then your half of the couple and why they're great. In your case, it would be the bride. Then the other half of the couple and why they're great, why the couple is great together, and your hopes and wishes for them for the future. And a great big raise your glass toast. And for some reason, people always forget the toast. I don't know if they just forget it in the moment, but so often people forget the toast, and it's great to actually say it, to actually say, and now would you all please raise your glass and join me in a toast to the happy couple. I know I speak for everyone here when I wish you a lifetime of health, happiness, and laughter. That can also be a place where you can do a callback, which is a comedic device where you mention again a joke or a funny line that you had before. So if he's violently allergic to her dog, lifetime of health, happiness, and prescription allergy medicine. Health, happiness, and Claritin. Just whatever your biggest laugh line is in your speech, see if there's a way you can work that into the toast. So have the sincere stuff. And then in comedy also, it's a rule of 3. So sort of A and B are true. C is true, but funny. If you're watching this on the replay, you can go into the description. I've got the timestamp of all the questions that we've covered today, so you can just jump right to the one that's appropriate. If you are enjoying watching this, please give it a thumbs up. And I am also, let me know in the comments what kind of speech you're working on. I always love to find that out. Ask any questions you have. You can still ask them in the comments. Even if it's on the replay, I will go into it and I will answer it. And I am going to try to do this on a monthly basis. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time.